Yeah.
Um,
So interesting. We could probably spend an hour on that point here. But before we
mhm.
get too far, um, I try to start by defining terms and maybe differentiating some things for the listeners, so we're all on the same page. How do you define or think about anxiety in this book, like from a philosophical perspective?
Um, Very good question. Um, Anxiety is quite a multifarious phenomena, as I acknowledge in the opening parts of the book. Given many names used to describe many moods, feelings, emotions, states of mind. Um, Couple of clarifying notions to push it in the direction of what perhaps I'm most interested in. One is it is distinct from fear in the sense that while fear is of something or someone or something or the other, of some entity, anxiety is a fear of nothing in particular. It is just formless fear. It is not fear attached to a definite target. If you have a definite target, then you have fear. If you don't have a definite target, it is a more inchoate, kind of free floating, signifier free almost mood. That's anxiety. So, Freud, Heidegger, Sartre, various people have said anxiety is the fear of nothing or the fear of nothingness, because there is nothing there in particular to be fearful of, except the stuff that you can fill with your imagination. So it is such a formless fear that we don't even like it being formless, and we rush to fill it with concreteness sometimes.
Mm.
But it's the thing that bugs us, that even when everything is good, even when nothing is threatening us, we still feel kind of anxious. That mood is anxiety. And I would say, in the way that I approach it in the book, in introducing people to my own personal anxiety and the various philosophical traditions and the way they've talked about it, I would say it's a kind of existential anxiety. It's a kind of discomfort with certain particulars of existence. And I will talk about those really quickly. And I would say in some ways that taking different forms in the ways that other philosophical traditions might have spoken about it. So, for example, there's materialist anxiety, anxiety caused by this world's arrangements and orderings, right? The fact that I am perpetually insecure about where I will make my next dollar, because I know that in such a society, if I become homeless, I am in real trouble. It's not as if the society that I'm living in will pick me up and take care of me. There are no social structures that will hold me up if I was to fall down in such a way. That's quite a cosmic terror to experience, right? Another one might be something like religious anxiety, right? Or there might be psychoanalytic anxiety, which is explained by psychoanalysis in a different way. Or there is, like, the kind of existential anxiety that Buddhism is concerned with, which is more allied to our existential anxiety in the Western tradition, which is the fact that you're uncomfortable with the fact that you exist in a particular way, that your existence has certain features which are its definitive aspects. So that's the kind of anxiety that I think I ultimately center on. And this is what I would call the existential trifecta. The fact that my existence is finite, it begins and ends at some point. Secondly, that my existence has a temporal dimension. It has a past, a present, and a future. And that I connect with this time, this temporal aspect of myself, as an important sense of my being, as having identity. In the sense that I grant myself enduring identity because I remember a past with myself and I project a future for myself. It's because of this that I have a sense of persisting through time. And lastly, I'm conscious of this. So I'm conscious of the fact that my time this enduring, this dimension through which I move is finite. These three things taken together, this is what I call my existential particulars. My relationship to these particulars ensures that I will be and that I am anxious. Because I am concerned about my future. I'm projecting a future for myself, but yet I cannot know what it is. And in fact, I can only do so much about it. Similarly for my past, I remember my past. I regret my past. My past makes me fearful for my future, but I cannot do anything about it. So my ability with it is sharply delimited. This also makes me anxious. So I occupy this like vanishing point between the regretful past, the anticipated future, my sense of my limited abilities caught in this nexus, my being conscious of it. And I'm not an unconcerned creature. Oh, I don't care about the future. I'm good. No, you are. You're very concerned. So if you're concerned, but yet you're incapacitated from finding out with any greater precision than your best science about what the future holds for you, then I put it to you that you are fundamentally an anxious creature. And our various anxieties are various clothings that we have put over this basic limitation of ours. It's, will I spend my time properly on this, in this 80, 90-year shot that I get? Am I doing the right things? Am I spending it the right way? Do I have the right assignment of priorities and duties? Have I parceled up my time properly? I mean, this is the big obsession. We're all like, oh my God, what do I do with this time? And sometimes I'm like, what do I do? I'm just actually not going to do anything at all. Sometimes we just break down and we're like, you know what? I'm not going to fucking bother. But I think that's what it is. I think that's the anxiety I'm getting at.
I love it. I appreciate you unpacking that. I'm not sure if this is a fair question, but I'm curious to ask if there's anything that comes to mind in differentiating, say, a philosophical perspective of anxiety versus what someone might get picking up a traditional, like, psychological perspective or self-help perspective. Like, anything come to mind around like the different approaches around this topic?
I would say that, those approaches that you're describing as psychological or self-help, they rely on a philosophical framework or a viewpoint for thinking about the mind and persons. Psychology, those psychological frameworks are an attempt to give some kind of empirical heft to conceptual philosophical models of the mind, for instance. And the self-help models, books that you'd be talking about, are overtly philosophical in some sense. They make claims about the kinds of beings we are, the kinds of entities we are, how our minds work, how we should take care of ourselves, what our dues and our rights are. Philosophy is self-help. What we call self-help now is popularized philosophical reflections about the mind. I always say bumper stickers are good bumper stickers because they reflect some philosophical wisdom. I used to teach a class called Philosophical Issues in Literature, and I used to always have this open, not challenge, but just an invitation to my class. I used to say, bring to the class an excerpt from the reading that you have marked up with a pencil or a pen in the margin, and you've said something like, this is funny, this is whack, this is weird, or this is interesting. I said, mark it up and bring it to class. I will read it with you in class. And I promise you that we will find buried in this novel the thing that you found funny or amusing or distinctive or thought-provoking or tail-jerking. I guarantee you, there is a philosophical truth buried in there somewhere. And this book has tickled you by providing you access to this philosophical reflection that it has enabled on your life. I guarantee you. Bring it to class. And people used to bring novels to class. And they used to point me, the author says this made me laugh. I say, well, let's look at it. Why does it make you laugh? How has it made you see the world in a new light? And your place within it accordingly, right? And so I would say that's very true of the self-help book. It says, have you ever thought about looking at the world this way? Or what's that? That's a philosophical or even a poetical maneuver, I would say. That's what the poet does, right? He makes you look at the world in a particular light. So I think to kind of turn your question back in its original framing, I would say the psychology book, insofar as it connects with you, is bringing you into aspects of yourself that philosophical reflection does make us aware of, the kinds of creatures we are, the kinds of beings we are, how we think, how we have come to believe the things that we take to be true, and whether those might be making us fearful, for instance, right? I think this is why people go to therapy, for instance. After all, they are attempting to unpack themselves, and they want a guide. They want someone they can trust to help them do it.
Yeah.
The etymology of the term psychotherapy, by the way, psyche is Greek for soul, and therapia is healer, right? So psychotherapist is a soul healer. And that's what philosophers call themselves, soul healers. They're the original psychotherapists in that sense, right? Because they're attempting to heal your soul through, hopefully reflection, pondering on why we do the things that we do, what we value, how that makes us live the lives that we do. If someone says, I believe in A, B, and C, and I value X, Y over Z, and then you step back and look at your life, you will see in your life the consequences of the choices you have made acting according to those beliefs and values. Hopefully you should, if you're being honest with yourself about what your beliefs and values are, right?
Yeah.
Which is why sometimes you can find out in these brutally honest self-examinations that either you're not acting according to your beliefs, which means you are professing some beliefs and values for yourself that you don't actually live your life by. And so there's a tension in there that you need to reconcile. Or you are claiming to be surprised by the life you have come to live, even though it is pretty clear that you believe the things that you tell me and you act accordingly. Why then are you surprised by the life you're living? Or by its consequences having obtained in such fashion? You believe such things, you act in such ways. Well, such are the consequences of the choices you have made. I mean, this is also in some ways a kind of moment of coming to grip with oneself and the life that we have lived. Like, yes, there's a kind of, hopefully a realization there that you're living the life that lies at the nexus of the beliefs you profess and the actions you actually take, right?
And speaking of guides, there's something that comes to mind around, maybe Kierkegaard saying anxiety is the best teacher or something like that. What comes to mind around like anxiety as a teacher, like this guide within me?
Thanks for asking that question. I think it's an important claim to make on behalf of anxiety, that it can be a teacher, that it can be a source of self-knowledge. Because I think in the most straightforward sense, to attempt to localize anxiety, to find out if you can give this formless anxiety a form and a face, to make it concrete, to make it about something, is an educational exercise in that it teaches you what you are anxious or fearful of. And in understanding what it is that you are fearful of, you may come to understand something about the kinds of things that you have concern and care for. The things that I value, the things that I prize, the things that I am scared of losing also happen to be the things that I am concerned to spend my life devoting attention and my energies towards.